Back in the 1990s, information surfaced about paranormal phenomena around Lake Baikal, and in particular those of former military Soviet officer Mikhail Steinberg about underwater humanoids sighted by Soviet frogmen in the lake. This was not a lone account. Further investigation turned up other research of strange tall humanoids found in other parts of the Russian Empire and then the USSR. Ever since the 1970s, tales of strange phenomena have been reported near or in water, such as stories that appeared to tell of incidents off the shore of the Black Sea. Later confirmation of these events were published in a book by the late Mikhail de Medico, who was the Chinese interpreter for top Soviet military officials and was later a popular writer and researcher. Lake Baikal is a very interesting place. It possesses a local nickname, the Pearl of Siberia, and is also referred to by many as the Baikal Sea. That's important, and it's the largest freshwater lake in the world. By volume, it contains about 23% of the world's fresh water. It's also the most transparent and clearest water in the world. Its depth is about 5,387 feet or 1,642 meters, which makes it the world's deepest lake, and it's the seventh largest lake by its surface area. Despite its great depth, Baikal Lake is well mixed and is well oxygenated. It is also the world's oldest lake, about 25 to 30 million years old, and some recent research suggests in about a few million years from now it will become its own ocean. The majestic lake is surrounded by high mountains and is situated in Rift Valley, where the Earth's crust is slowly pulling apart. The rift is active and widens about 2 centimeters or 0.8 of an inch every year. The fault zone is also active with hot springs, and earthquakes happen about 2,000 times a year. The lake is fed by 6 main rivers: the Upper Angara River, the Turka River, the Sama River, the Salminga River, and the Barguzin River, and also the Snars Nia River, including many other rivers totaling 330 flowing rivers, and is drained to a single outlet in the Angara River. Of course, we have ancient stories about tunnels that connect this lake with other parts of the world. Lake Baikal hosts more than 2,500 species of animal and more than 1,000 species of plants, of which 80% of plants and animals are endemic and can only be found at Baikal. It also has species that would fall into the realm of cryptozoology, or maybe study of extraterrestrial sentient civilizations, and its depths were apparently no secret to those who wrote the Mahabharata in ancient India. Baikal historians are more than attentive to the story of the failed capture of humanoids in 1982. For example, a well-known local historian, Borotia Alexei Vanyinko, believes that the ill-fated Soviet divers of frogmen could have easily seen something, and they were not seal carcasses. Alexei Vanyinko was one of the founders of the Ethnographic Museum of People of Transbaikalia, and at one time he worked as the director of the State Archive of the Burat Autonomous Soviet Socialist Republic. He was a member of the Academic Council of Archivists, or Archivists of Siberia, in the Far East, senior researchers of the Baikal Institute of Nature Management, candidate of Historical Sciences, and a doctoral degree student. He discovered prehistoric ostrich eggs in Boryata, found 500 new ancient monuments, petroglyphs and shrines, found graves of members of the Russian embassy mission Urafat-Zabalovsky, who were killed on Lake Baikal by the Mongols in 1650. He found relics of the local Orthodox church Walam Tchaikovsky, discovered the forgotten grave of the Hungarian poet Chandra Pitafay in Barbazine, and found many other equally interesting objects, ancient sanctuaries, fortresses and settlements. Is it easy to disbelieve such a person? In his article Traces of Real Extraterrestrial Life in Lake Baikal, he points out that local fishermen took the stories about the silver swimmers seriously. So, for example, the fisherman Nikolai Karyev from the village of Kurtuk, which is 40 kilometers from Slodyanka, told the local historian that in the 1990s, together with his comrades, he fished at the Klugla-Baikalskaya, or Kirkum-Baikal railway area, which stretches from Kurtuk to the port of Baikal. Lake Baikal on this place breaks off to a depth of almost 1,400 meters immediately, abruptly at the shore, If you fall overboard here, you will not escape death. Even in summer, the water's temperature in such places is no higher than 3 degrees. You can't swim to the shore, your heart will stop, and in the middle of the night, huge silvery bodies began to jump up out of the icy depths of the lake as if they were playing. The fishermen were frightened. What if these creatures turned over their motorboat? They would die. After dropping their nets and somehow starting the engine, they retreated to the village and never fished there again. However, from the shore, the local historian was also told about this case by other fishermen who were with Karyev, but out of all the witnesses, somehow Karyev remained alive. It's known that the story of Vanyinko was taken seriously by researchers who studied Lake Baikal in 2008 and 2009 with a deep-sea vehicle, Mir. Vanyinko, who was on that expedition, went down to the Lake Baikal himself, and according to him, it happened in the place where the military divers just collided with the swimmers. However, he says that the encounter did not happen at that time. Mikhail Demedico described a chance discovery. According to Vanyinko, the specialist of the Ministry of Emergency Situations of Russia with whom he spoke. Not only did he take the story of the fishermen seriously, but also confirmed the tragedy in 1982 really took place, and Vanyinko recalled that in that distant year he himself met the military on the lake of the Barbazine Bay. When asked what they were doing, the soldiers answered evasively. They said they studied the depths of the reservoir because scientists and limnologists don't know everything about its underwater life. The words of the local historian were indirectly confirmed by the author of the book Sailors of Lake Baikal by Alexander Kalatilo, who speaks of an unusual surge of interest in Lake Baikal since the 1960s. Geographers and cartographers appeared on the shores of the lake again, and the waters of the lake began to plough, to be visited by multiple research vessels. China is not that far away too, so they had their own strategic and defense interests in the Soviet Union, especially since there was a conflict in 1969 between the Communist China and the Communist USSR. Lake Baikal was of great interest and has tremendous stories and a paranormal history. The local historian admits that there are lots of strange phenomena on the lake. There's a glow from the depths and there are blood-curdling sounds. Willows or the wisps of wandering lights are seen over the water if you pass a couple of nights by the campfire on the shore. Vanyinko saw a UFO hover over the lake 3 times, once from the window of his own dacha country house at the Boyak station. It was a huge white ball on the surface of the lake and it didn't move or drift. It didn't look like a gas outburst either. The second time was on a warm summer evening in Tango. Something small and black fell from the sky at high speed. It was supposed to fall into the lake, but just before it reached the surface of the water, about a few meters, it abruptly changed its trajectory and flew over the lake. The local historian and about 10 of his companions expected that the object would crash into the fishing boats, but suddenly it disappeared as if it had never been there. While walking along the Kirkham-Baikal Railway, Vanyinko once saw a cigar-shaped object of silver-orange color, which flew out from the Tunga Valley and flew over the surface of the lake and retreated to the Hamar-Devan Bridge. The local historian defined its dimensions as 200 meters in length and about 50 meters in width. Over the lake, the UFO released 3 spherical objects that flew apart. Later, Vanyinko learned at the same time that the object had been seen over Ulaanbaatar. Similar objects have also been seen over Siberia, going as far back as 1953, and were also reported by the Soviet Union counterintelligence over the Western Pacific Ocean in 1979. In Ulaanbaatar, the local historian found 2 amazing documents. First, he discovered that a similar object had appeared over the lake in 1909. It was seen on the Trans-Baikal Railway. The object was moving towards the lake, but sadly there were no further details. According to the swimmers, Vanyinko found a story from a century ago by Tobolsk peasant Komlama Roskov, who reported that his friend was a Baikal-born native, Fetcha Tarazana, and said that in Baikal there are pharaohs. One day these pharaohs played such a game that they sank a ship. Then the villagers began to suspect foul play, and they threw a strong dragnet into the lake and pulled about 50 pharaohs to the shore. The pharaohs were just like people. They had hands, all human, and legs, only where the toes are. It was kind of fused with the tail of the fish. The villagers whipped their nose with rods and threw them into the sea. After their 6 the fellows went to another place. In 1976, during the construction of the farm on the town mainland, a division of 12 patrol boats appeared there. Could it be the divers also trained at the base of this division? They might have come from other regions. All this is covered in secrecy. For those of you who want to do your own research in the lake, feel we should issue from the warning. The FSB, Russian Security Service, understands the value of the lake, and they not like independent researchers from overseas. But plenty of other dangers and special units about it. Lake Baikal has a lot of different phenomena, such as the hurricane wind, for example, and if you go there without understanding what it's like in that lake, you could easily lose your life. The natives believe that the cause of the destructive Sama is the revenge of the Baikal spirits, who do not tolerate even the slightest violation of the rules of conduct or behavior. Do not throw anything into the water, and even more so, do not spit, do not light fires on the shore, and do not call Lake Baikal a lake. It's only the sea. That's what you're supposed to call it. People living in the village of Sama additionally fortify their roofs, tying them to the ground because it doesn't cost the wind anything to tear the roof off, and Sama can easily scatter boats, overturn and flood barges, and even break large ships on the rocks. The danger of Sama was mentioned in the 17th century by the famous traveller, diplomat and merchant Everett Ides in his notes about his travels in Siberia. He colourfully described the winter crossing on the Baikal ice. The hurricane force wind was so strong that they blew away all the snow. The surface became so slippery that the horses simply could not move. They constantly fell. It's no coincidence that old-timers shoed horses and oxen with special spikes that could help them stay on the ice. According to Ides, a terrible tragedy can end with a crossing on unshod horses. The horses fall and the wind blows them along with the sledge into the nearest sagebush. It's impossible to keep them in order, so it's not to be lost. There's only one thing left, which is to leave everything and watch the horse, the ledge and the luggage go under the water. Every year, dozens of people disappear on that lake, and search expeditions do not give any results. Once a group of researchers ventured to the bottom of Sharanur, and they found out that the lake is connected to Lake Baikal by a network of underground tunnels in which snakes can hide. Fishermen confirm the scientists' guesses. They often hear sounds similar to groans and growls from the depth of the waters. Be very careful. There are here areas of Russia that are fascinating, but either you have to know the local people or you have to make sure that the government does not prevent you from going where you're not supposed to. By all means, visit the lake as a tourist. Don't spoil it, as some tourists have been doing. And of course, we hope that it doesn't become contaminated by chemicals, as some irresponsible enterprises have been doing. But don't get involved into research if you don't know what you're doing. There was a brief news item in the local Baikal publication in 2018 which shows the military importance of the area. It read, "The Baikal Search and Rescue Squad at the base in the Irkutsk region there are exercises of diving specialists and doctors. During the training, they had to pass an examination of the Central Diving Commission for admission and work as intended. The training camp brought together diving specialists and doctors from the Russian federal detachments, subjects and invited guests from various organizations, suppliers of diving equipment, scientific organizations, and developers of diving equipment and specialists from Birakia."
If you enjoyed this, make sure to watch the next video on Awaken Zone. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, but you won't want to miss what's coming next.